On our last episode, we talked about Ruth, Bathsheba, and Mary, the mother of Jesus. Now, we'll be talking about Tamar and Rahab. Some of you may be wondering,
who that?
These two were both prostitutes found in Jesus' lineage. Find out more about them on this episode and stay tuned! Hello people in the world, I'm Hannah of Hope and Future Bible Devotions. This channel gives you encouragement and godly wisdom with Bible context and life application. So welcome, and if you are new here and that's what you're looking for, consider subscribing. Let's get to it. Tamar's story is found in Genesis 38, which I highly encourage you to read on your own. Here I'll be giving a short summary. Tamar was a Canaanite woman whom Judah, Jacob's son, arranged to be married to his son Er's mother was also a Canaanite who most probably raised and influenced with Canaanite ways, which was pagan. Was wicked to the point that the Lord took his life. Tamar did not have a son with so Judah gave Tamar to Onan, his second son, to produce an heir for his brother. If you want to learn more about the custom during that time, then you can find that in Deuteronomy 25 verse 5 to 10. Onan was not willing to produce an heir for his brother, and he only took advantage of Tamar. This was considered wicked in the sight of the Lord, and with that, Onan's life was taken too. Judah was afraid that his remaining son Shelah was going to die too, so he told Tamar to just go back to his father's house, and he would just summon her when Shelah was old enough to become her husband, which was a promise that he didn't plan to keep. Years later, Judah's wife died, and also Tamar realized that Judah did not plan to fulfill his promise. She disguised herself as a prostitute, and when she encountered Judah, he tricked him into having sexual relations with her. You can read other details in the passage, but 3 months later, Tamar was found pregnant, and that was punishable by death. But when Tamar revealed that Judah was the father, he realized his own sin and took her as his wife. In Genesis 38:26, Judah said this, "She is more righteous than I am, because I didn't arrange for her to marry my son Shelah." Tamar had 2 sons, Perez and Zerah. We'll go back to the conclusion of Tamar's story later, but now let's talk about Rahab. Her story is found in Joshua 2. Rahab was known to be a prostitute in Jericho, and her house was built right into the city walls. She provided both lodging and favors to travelers. Joshua, the leader of the Israelites that time, sent 2 spies to scout out the land on the other side of the Jordan River, especially around Jericho. The king of Jericho was told by someone about the spies, so he sent orders to Rahab to bring them out from her house. She told the king's men they went another way, when actually they were still hiding inside. And because of that, the king's men left. In Joshua 2:9, while the spies were still in her house, she told them, "I know the Lord has given you this land. We are all afraid of you. Everyone in the land is living in terror." And later in verse 11, she said, "For the Lord your God is the supreme God of the heavens above and the earth below." Wow. That was a declaration of faith on her part. After a few days, Rahab gave instructions to the spies for their safe escape, but she made an agreement with them for the safety of her whole family. They made an oath, and the spies went on their way back. True enough, in Joshua 6, in verse 23, during the fall of Jericho, we see that Rahab's whole family was spared and brought to a safe place near the camp of Israel. Fast forward to Hebrews 11:31, it says, "It was by faith that Rahab the prostitute was not destroyed with the people in her city who refused to obey God, for she had given a friendly welcome to the spies." Tamar's name is found in Matthew 1:3, while Rahab in verse 5 in the genealogy of Jesus. Both of these women were not from Israel, which is the chosen nation. They were from Canaan, a pagan nation. But God used the events in the life of Judah and Tamar to fulfill the prophecy that the Messiah would come from their line. Rahab became the mother of Boaz, who took Ruth as his wife to become her kinsman redeemer, whom King David came from. They are proof of God's grace. Along with the other women in the previous episode, all these women were just human. They were women who, in the culture during that time, were not given major roles in the society, but God knew them. Their names were in Jesus' genealogy. God can use any situation to fulfill His plans. That doesn't excuse sin, but it shows God's grace. It's a lineage of grace indeed. My question for you is, which among the 5 stories stood out to you? I want to know, so comment below. Let me just mention that this episode was inspired by the book called Lineage of Grace by Francine Rivers, which I'm still reading at this time of filming, and it talks about the 5 women in Jesus' genealogy. Now, speaking of Jesus' genealogy, I actually have a devotion on it, so you can check it right here. And I also have some testimonies where I share about God's goodness in my life, so you can check that right here. Remember, we're people in the world, not of the world. Keep your eyes on Jesus.